Hey, what's up YouTube? Today I'm going to talk about the stock of Facebook. Everyone knows of the successful social media company and they have a lot of revenues and earnings. Whenever I analyze a stock, I first look at the financial metrics like revenues, earnings, cash flows, equity, and so on. And we can get those numbers from Facebook's earnings release. Let's look at their quarterly results for the quarter ending March 31st, 2021. As you can see, revenue went up from almost $18 billion to $26 billion. From 2020 to 2021. This is a growth of 48%, which is fantastic. At the same time, earnings went up from almost $5 billion to $9.4 billion. This is almost doubling the net income. Earnings per share went up from 1.71 to 3.30 for the quarter ending March 31st, 2021. These are fantastic growth numbers. There are very, very few companies in the world who can double their earnings from a base of $5 billion per quarter. If you look at a longer time frame and look at the yearly trends, you can see that they had revenues of $12 billion in 2014, which have now become almost $85 billion in 2020. And at the same time, the net income went from $2.9 billion in 2014 to $29 billion in 2020. Profit margins and return on assets and return on equity are very important metrics that can be used to judge the quality of a business. And in terms of profit margins, they're very high. The net profit margin is 35%, almost 36%, and the operating margin is very high at 40%. Guys, there are very few businesses in the world that have margins as high as Facebook's margins. It shows that it is a very effective monopoly. Now, let's take a look at the fundamentals behind these numbers. The revenues for any social media company is the number of users using the service times ARPU. ARPU is the average revenues per user per year. And if you look at the number of users for Facebook, the total number of users has been growing over time. Although the number of users in the US has not been growing that much, it currently stands at around 195 million users. At least it's not declining. But the number of users in other places, like other geographies, Europe, Asia, Africa, and the rest of the world, that has been growing quite a lot over time. Currently, the total number of daily users on Facebook is 1.84 billion users in 2020. Similarly, the number of monthly active users has also been going up. ARPU trends are very interesting. You can see that in the US and Canada, they make almost $50 per user per quarter. And for the rest of the world, they make almost $2.64 per user per quarter. So there is massive potential for growth in ARPU for the rest of the world. And I believe this is how Facebook will grow their revenues in the future. Finally, let's look at valuation. As you know, no stock in the world makes sense as an investment unless the price is right. And valuation always happens by looking at alternatives. This is similar to how a real estate agent figures out the price of a house by looking at nearby houses. We must figure out the valuation of Facebook by looking at similar stocks. This chart shows FANG valuation, which are the peers of Facebook, Google, Netflix, Amazon, and so on. As you can see, Facebook is the cheapest amongst all the FANG stocks, with a forward PE of 22.6. Alright, let me try to give you a summary of Facebook's investment thesis. It is a high-quality business with great margins, great ROE and ROA. That's return on equity and return on assets. It has great growth. I believe they can grow revenues by bringing the ARPU of the rest of the world closer to the ARPU of US and Canada. There's still more than a 10x gap between the ARPU of the rest of the world with the ARPU of US and Canada. That's average revenue per user. It has reasonable valuation. It is the cheapest of the FANG stocks. It has good management. Mark Zuckerberg runs the company and owns a lot of shares. So he is an owner-operator whose interests are aligned with shareholders' interests. To give you full disclosure, I do own Facebook at much lower prices. Good luck with your investments. If you have a question, please leave it in the comment section below and I'll take a look at it. Thank you for watching.